Everything on the front of your PC has to communicate with the motherboard somehow. And that's exactly what front panel cables are for. The problem, they belong to the case, not the motherboard. They look slightly different depending on the manufacturer, and they're often completely skipped in tutorials. Not today. Let's start nice and easy with the big, relatively simple connectors. The most common one is the USB 3 header for the faster USB-A ports on the front of your case. It's usually blue, sometimes black, big, chunky, and pretty hard to confuse with anything else. You'll often find it somewhere around the middle right side of your motherboard or down on the lower edge. Here's one important thing to remember. This connector only fits one way. I'm going to say this more than once today. If it doesn't fit right away, don't push. Hold up, line it up straight so the patterns match. Try again. If you need force, it's wrong. Period. The USB 2 connector is usually black, smaller, and because of a missing pin, it also only fits one way. Same rule applies here. No force, even if it feels fiddly. You'll often find these headers next to each other, either on the right edge or also along the lower part of the motherboard. Sometimes they're even clearly labeled USB. Newer cases also come with front panel USB-C. That's the modern looking rectangular connector that looks like it can be plugged in either orientation. It can't. Trust me on this. The matching header is usually on the right side of the motherboard. One thing to watch out for, on almost every case I've built, that USB-C cable is very stiff and likes to pop loose. So at the very end of your build, double check that it's still fully seated. And if your motherboard doesn't have a USB-C header, no problem at all. The front USB-C just won't work. Your PC really doesn't mind. Now we get to the most important part, and where most builds go wrong. These tiny individual cables with labels like Power SW, Reset SW, Power LED Plus, Power LED Minus, HDD LED Plus and Minus. They look optional, but they're not. Let's start with the most important one, Power SW. That stands for power switch, the actual power button. Without this cable, pressing the power button does exactly one thing, nothing. The good news, most of the time it's just one switch, but it still has polarity, so a plus and a minus. That means you can't just plug it in either way. Usually, the writing on the plug has to point downwards, and on some connectors, the positive side is also marked with a little arrow. That's nice, but unfortunately not always common. So make sure it's on the correct pins for your PC to actually turn on. You'll usually find the front panel pins at the bottom right corner of the motherboard, but we'll get to that in a moment. Reset SW, the reset button, works exactly the same way. Direction does matter. If your case doesn't have a reset button, no cable and also no problem. Now the LEDs. Power LED and HDD LED also have plus and minus. And here's the good news. If you plug them in backwards, nothing breaks. The LED just won't light up. This is one of the most common beginner mistakes and also the most harmless one. Now look at your motherboard. Somewhere near the bottom part, you'll find a small pin block labeled something like F panel, JFP1 or front panel. On some mini ITX boards, it might be on the side, but it's almost always on the right. And now, the most important tip in this entire video. Open the motherboard manual. Not later, not in a second, now. There's one diagram that shows you exactly which pin does what. And yes, even experienced PC builders check it. If your board didn't come with a physical manual, there's always a PDF on the manufacturer's website, so check that out. Some boards do have a tiny diagram printed directly on the PCB. I mean, that's nice, but if not, manual and done. Plug in one cable at a time, slowly. No stress, this is not a speed run. And yes, I know, it is fiddly. And keep checking the manual to make sure plus and minus are correct. But we're not done yet. There's another cable that regularly gets forgotten. HD audio. And if you're wondering why there's no sound coming from the front panel, this is often why, since it handles the headphone and microphone jacks on the front of your case. It only fits one specific header, usually at the bottom left of the motherboard. Don't confuse it with old AC97 headers or similar looking pins like USB 2 headers. And don't force it, those pins bend easily. And as is custom, it only fits one way. Depending on the case, you'll also have fans to deal with. They're not always directly part of the front panel, but sometimes they're controlled there. Especially if your case has a built-in fan controller like the Be Quiet Darkbase 901 here. Whether it's a fan up or fans directly, they go into sysfan or charfan headed. That stands for system fan or chassis fan. They are on the top of the motherboard and often also on the bottom side. These come in two versions. 3-pin fans are voltage controlled and not quite as precise. 4-pin fans use PWM or pulse width modulation and give you a much better control over your fan curve. If you have the choice, always use 4-pin. And then there's RGB. Take a deep breath. 5V ARGB with 3 pins is not the same as 12V RGB with 4 pins. Plugging this one wrong can kill your LEDs. Remember this, 3 pins with a gap equals 5V. That's what you want for individually addressable colors. Perfect for some real RGB goodness. 12V has 4 pins and is analog. Everything lights up the same color. Usually found on older cases. If you're unsure, check your motherboard manual here too. Seriously, it just takes a few seconds. So if your PC won't turn on, no LEDs light up, or nothing works on the front panel, think back to this video. Most of the time it's not the power supply, not the motherboard, and not the CPU. It's a tiny front panel cable that's just 1 pin off. But now I would like to know, which cable drove you crazy on your first PC build? Let us know in the comments and hit that like and subscribe button.